Hello, hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, and this is a little bit late, but guys know I had a long weekend to myself. This whole MAGA, ultra MAGA thing that Biden is doing. Apparently, if you did not know, this is interesting. This is something they've been coming up with for like 6 months. And that's amazing to me. That is the story. That is the story that it took 6 months to come up with this big insult to try to brand conservatives or Republicans or people like Trump or whatever as ultra MAGA. Like, all you did was throw a word in front of it to sort of amplify it. Not a great plan. Not a great plan. But the fact that it took 6 months is amazing. And it might let you know why everything they do at the White House is bad. Something is wrong with their brains. So that's hilarious. I want to talk about that. There was an article in the Washington Post about it. Someone said, speaks to the level of their intelligence. I don't know what's up with some of these folks, and it's amazing that Biden is sitting in the White House right now, but we know, I guess, when every lever of power does whatever they can to get you there, that's how that can happen. But in normal circumstances, that man should just be alone in his basement, not at the White House. But it's hilarious. So I want to talk about that for sure. I want to talk about the race in Pennsylvania. We'll know what happens today. It's election day. And of course, the front runner, we assume is still maybe Oz, but how they were attacking Barnett, perhaps the data is in that she's number one, but they are basically tied. It was a three-way tie, but those are like the top two right now. And I've talked about how I really am uncomfortable with some of the attacks that have been thrown at her. And I was just writing an article about it, which I'll post, I guess, when I get off of here. It's alarming, a lot of different ways that they're going about stuff. For example, they're complaining because she lost a congressional seat in 2020 by like 20 points. It's a solidly blue area. If you know anything about politics, you know that there are areas that are just basically unwinnable. I mean, you have to try. I mean, I ran in 2014, and I had just turned 25 actually, and I only ran for about a month. It was a special sort of election circumstance or whatever. But I ran against Brenda Lawrence when she first got into Congress. It was me on the ballot against her. And it was like an 80-20 district. And you know what? I lost, what it came out to be, like 80-20, because it's just mostly Democrats there. Mostly Democrats in that area, even in the city where I live, just mostly them. You run to be sort of the sacrificial lamb and you don't run intending to lose, but you know that you're going to. Like, I really did run a race for as much as I could for like a month, right? And but I even went to like a debate that the League of Women Voters puts on, and they're like left-leaning or whatever. But I showed up to the debate. Brenda Lawrence didn't even show up because once, and they were mad because she was like begging them and bothering them during the primary. But as soon as she won the primary, it was like, I've won the race. And she wasn't wrong. Maybe she still should have showed up for the debate, but she knew she had it in the bag, and she did, because that's just how the district was set up. So yes, she lost by technically 19 points, I believe it was, but she outperformed Trump in that district in 2020. So if that's a really bad talking point, and if you're not politically savvy, haven't thought about it like that, then maybe that sounds like reasonable, like, oh gosh, no, she can't win. But people who are pushing it know better. They really know better. So that's just an example of one thing that I really, really dislike. But nothing is worse than trying to paint her as like some kind of pro BLM secret Democrat. Pastor Darrell Scott, he tweeted about that and just how people are mischaracterizing her. It's one thing to attack, if people have bad ideas or bad tweets or other stuff like that, but to just try to mischaracterize somebody, I don't like it. I really don't like it, and I'm not totally surprised, but I am disappointed um on our side. Trump has come out and said some stuff about her, not in the aggressive way that he can go about attacking people, as we've seen. But he's brought up the 20-point thing again. Just that's actually not a non-issue. And he said she hasn't been vetted, but I'm like, she's run a campaign for 13 months, and if people haven't vetted her, that's frankly the voters aren't doing their due diligence. She's been out there. She hasn't been in the forefront like other people because she's like on a shoestring budget, like someone Will Chamberlain defended her because some people are saying that she's not accessible, she's not answering questions. She's like, she has like two staffers there. It's very like, it's hard, like it's a very like tight budget, sort of tight race between like a couple different people running. It's not that they're not accessible, not answering questions, it's just like they have a lot of ground to cover for such a small team. They're not running with millions of dollars like Oz and McCormick or something like that. She's running, with like hundreds, like $100,000, not even hundreds of thousands, right? So um it would be amazing if she pulled it out, but it is definitely an interesting race. But we will see how that comes out. Also, we have a new press secretary who's a moron apparently. I saw one of her clips exchange with Ducey, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. They want to brag. See, they want to brag about being the first, and so she's the first Black gay immigrant to hold this sort of position, and they're like, history. Well, what happens when you like history and you expect everybody to be proud, but you don't do a good job, right? You don't do a good job. So it's one, like, Biden's a dishonest person, so whoever's got to be up there, they got to deceive and misdirect and all this other kind of stuff. But she did something the other day, was just like dumb in my opinion. I'm gonna show you the clip. We can laugh at it or whatever you guys want to do, but she's not very impressive. And then I also want to show you guys this clip that a pro-life journalist took of an interview. It was an interview that she had with someone who was marching in DC, because you have people marching in favor of pro-choice, or abortion rather. And she obviously did not have a good grasp on anything regarding the issue, and some people criticize, like, why are you putting this young girl on blast? She obviously doesn't know that much about it. But I'm like, this is exactly the type of person who gets on TikTok every night, every day. There are dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands. I don't know. Like, it's scrolling through my algorithm. There's plenty of people arguing for abortion, that some of them no restrictions at all. No restrictions at all. And they'll basically have the same opinions and same worldview. So I want you guys to see this, because I just want you to be aware of the fact of this is how they think. A lot of these people think this is how they argue, and it's just really, really sort of shallow thinking that they're so passionate about. And the thing about this girl is that she drove. I think she's from maybe Washington, like the state Washington. If I'm not if I'm not positive, but she'll say it in the video when we watch it. But she came a long way to come to this march for an issue she doesn't really know a lot about, but she's very passionate about it. Very passionate about it. That's what I keep saying this. People get mad at me. But I say Democrats rely on their voters being emotionally charged rather than factually informed. And this is an example with all these people who are pushing like the pro-choice stuff, but don't really have a good grasp on what they're saying, on any uh, biology, embryology, philosophy, rights. Don't have a good grasp on it. It just sounds like me. I want, I. Like Veruca Salt, is that her name on The Girl Turned to a Blueberry? I want the world. I want the whole. Like that. That is like their argument. It's not anything deeper than that. Really not. Really not. And I've seen it reminds me of when people were upset about kids in cages. And the pictures that first came out when people were really, really upset about it were from the Obama administration. Okay. And so people are like, well, it's still bad, it's still bad, it's still bad, it's still bad. Then the debate happened, second debate with Trump and Biden. Technically, I guess this was supposed to be like originally this was supposed to be the third one, but it ended up being the second one. And Trump mentioned coyotes. And then you had elected officials, you had blue check marks on Twitter, and all kinds of folk, David Hogg and other folks. They're just like, coyotes. How can you bring a whole entire child across the border with a coyote? That's an animal. And there was an alarming amount of tweets that said stuff like that just did not know what a coyote is. Now, if you don't know what a coyote is, that's okay. Okay. I don't expect everyone to know that. However, if you are so passionate about this particular issue, so much so that you want to vote someone out of office when we had a slamming economy and all kinds of other good stuff that I really personally enjoyed, but you want to get this person out of office and you, because of this issue, because of these kids in cages, because of the border, and you don't know enough about it to know what a coyote is, that's sus, bruh. Kind of sus. So you had a lot of emotions, but not a lot of information. So we're going to talk about that today as well. But before we jump into all this, I do want to thank Brighter Mission Pack. I am in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. I just enjoy using the space, and they like uplifting conservative voices. So Godspeed to them. You can check out articles that I've written, videos that I've done, etc., all kinds of stuff at blacktnews.com. Please go to my website, check out different merchandise that I have, like the goat hoodie. I got the I am not the victim you're looking for. I got the Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack Again, which, by the way, there was an update on the story about the crack pipes, because I think originally they were like, there's no crack pipes in the kit. And they tried to discount Free Beacon's reporting. And remember, I was like, the White House is denying it, but their denial doesn't make sense to me. I kept saying it repeatedly. So Free Beacon said that they tracked down the kits and there were crack pipes in them. And so when they asked Jen about it, she's like, well, no funds are going to it, but they still won't answer questions about it. So I'm pretty sure that our government are responsible for the crack pipe pit kits and stuff. Still can go further in that story. But anyway, there is a shirt available at blacktnews.com. They should just be like, because I think they said it was maybe something that was going on for a while, and just be like, it'd be brought to our attention. We're gonna make sure that crack pipes aren't in there, or they can try to explain why they feel that crack pipes need to be in there. But just being like, oh, it's not true. I'm like, oh, well, we're not funding it, or just things aren't adding up, Jen. It's not Jen's problem anymore. She's gone. She's going off to MSNBC. Which it's unethical that she was still press secretary for so long, knowing that she had a signed contract to go to MSNBC, and they just all let it slide. Just really, really remarkable, these people. Really, really remarkable. If you enjoy what I do here at blacktnews.com, consider going to blacktnews.com/donate and leaving a donation. Anything you guys can do to support the website, support like the streaming and all the costs associated, and to help us grow here. You can donate $20, $15, $100, whatever you would like to do. Very much appreciate it. Make sure that you guys are liking, that you're following, subscribing across all different kind of platforms. I know a lot of people like to watch on Facebook, but please still subscribe to YouTube and other sort of stuff, because that really does help. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there are links in the description. So make sure you are following across the platforms, and make sure that you go ahead and share. All that really does help. Okay, so let's move on. You guys know that I like to start with something funny, and this whole story is funny to me about the MAGA King thing. But Right to Bear Memes had posted this a few days ago. MAGA, Ultra MAGA, and the MAGA King. So the MAGA King is what they're calling Trump now and stuff. So I don't understand your president as far as Biden, and why they think this is gonna work, why they think this is a negative. Jen Psaki was asked about it, and And even how they're trying to phrase it. I don't know how you phrase it as something awful and terrible. Like I know there's people out there who have a bad association with MAGA in general. I remember during the 2016 election, I was so mad at Angela Rye. She was on maybe CNN talking about, well, when we hear MAGA, we think about water hoses and other kinds of garbage or whatever. So what I did, mind you, I worked at the Michigan Republican Party at the time. I took my camera. I drove out to Novi because I was working in Lansing. I drove out to Novi because there was a Trump rally there. And it was raining. And I grabbed my umbrella. I had my umbrella in one hand, the camera in the other. And I just went up to people and asked, hey, what does Make America Great Again mean to you? People talked about pride. People talk about patriotism. People talked about having respect on the world stage. People talked about being pro-life. People talked about having money in their bank accounts. People talked about the American dream. People talked about strengthening our military, respecting our military and veterans, and taking care, like all kinds of stuff. And surprisingly, but not really surprisingly, no one said anything about race. And I talked to white people, I talked to black people, I talked to Asian people, I talked to old people, I talked to young people. Now, some people were actually too afraid to actually speak up. There was this group of kids who went to U of M. And at first they're like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, wait, is this going to go viral? I'm like, well, that's always my hope that I make a video and it goes viral. And they're like, oh, we can't do it. And they didn't want to do it because they didn't want to be ostracized at their school. Isn't that disgusting that people are so afraid to voice their political opinions like that? But hey, everyone had good thoughts about MAGA. Nobody was thinking about taking people back to a time where we had slaves or water fountains that we couldn't drink out of at the same time. Like no one mentioned anything like that. That's just like the delusion that leftists like her, Angela Rye and other folks make up. And they really try to push, really try to shove. But just putting ultra in front of the MAGA is just silly. And they never really could get it right. I mean, Hillary Clinton had her basket of deplorables thing. And I'm like, why is it a basket? How many people, how many deplorables can you even get in the basket? How big is the basket? There's just all these questions that come into light when you think about it. So and people complain about that, and we use that, and we because people are like, oh, you're supposed to bring people together, and you're supposed to be the one who's not rude, and like Trump is rude, but you want to also be rude, but just in a more kind of snotty way. At least he's the punch you in the face kind of guy. They're like the shiv you in the back kind of folks. So it didn't turn out too well for her, but ultra MAGA. So Washington Post reports last Wednesday during a speech on the economy, President Biden coined a new phrase, ultra MAGA. Let me tell you about this ultra MAGA agenda, Biden said, using former President Donald Trump's 2016 slogan, Make America Great Again, as a prerogative. It's extreme, as most MAGA things are. Then in the subsequent days, Biden and his team continued to hammer Republicans in aggressive terms, attacking them as MAGA and ultra MAGA. Biden even dismissed the predecessor at one point, the great MAGA King. It took scant time for Republicans to gleefully seize on the moniker as their own, triumphantly elevating it as a brand worthy of celebration. I am ultra MAGA. I am proud of it, said Rep. Elise Stefanik, the number 3 House Republican, after a reporter Wednesday noted that she was being called ultra MAGA. The same day, Trump's Save America Super PAC sent out a fundraising email featuring a $45 t-shirt bearing the image of Trump as Superman, a Trump tee stretched across his chest rather than Superman's iconic S flying below the banner of Super MAGA in red and yellow comic book font. Now, I'm sure a lot of people probably bought that, but they said the ultra MAGA, so they should probably go with the ultra MAGA, which look for my shop. You'll see that soon. Did you hear what Joe Biden called us? He said, we are an extreme political organization. He said we were ultra MAGA. Read the email pitch. Well, if loving your country and wanting to put America first makes you ultra MAGA, then yes, we are ultra MAGA. And Wednesday night, Trump also blasted out a meme featuring himself as Aragorn, a selfless hero of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, complete with caption, "The Return of the Great MAGA King." So, that's another thing I don't get. People were already making stuff like this, and to just put that name out there as if it was going to be like some kind of detriment, I don't understand it. Someone has to explain it to me. I don't understand. How can you be this bad at this stuff? How can you be this bad at marketing? But it gets better. This is something that admits to the power of the influence of MAGA movement and President Trump's strength over the party. And for some reason, Biden thinks that's an insult, said Trump spokesperson Taylor Budowich. I don't understand what he's trying to achieve, especially given that right about now, whether you're a mother trying to feed your child who needs formula or someone trying to fill up your car, Ultra MAGA sounds pretty good. And man, I do you guys remember gas prices being this high before? Like I know it's like a new record for like national average. I don't think in the Obama years it got really high, but I don't think we ever breached $5 in Michigan. Um, but we're at 4.59 right now in my area. That's the highest I've seen it. It's getting pretty bad. And a friend of mine, she was talking about the price of eggs, like an 18 pack, or I think it was like 18 count or something. Used to be like 85 cents, and now it's like $4 or something. I'm like, if eggs are jumping like that, it's just gonna get really bad for all prices everywhere. Like it's just people aren't going to be like, yeah, we're sick of that ultra MAGA. People are going to be like, I need another shot of that. Like we made a mistake with Biden, you know? So they're definitely about to get creamed in midterms for sure. Trump himself absolutely loved the Great MAGA King meme and has privately mocked Biden and his fellow Democrats as bad branders who do not understand the art of marketing, said a person briefed on his thinking, speaking anonymously to share private details. And Trump is right on that. Trump and his fellow Republicans embrace the ultra MAGA, reflects the former president's skill at co opting would be insults or even random phrases. In 2016, for instance, when Hillary Clinton, then Democratic nominee for president, said that half the Trump supporters belonged to what she termed his basket of deplorables, Trump and his base quickly embraced the term, turning it into a rally cry. More recently, in October, F. Joe Biden chant broke out in Alabama, Talladega Speedway, while NBC reporter was interviewing a NASCAR driver, Brandon Brown, live on air. Hearing the cry, the reporter said, "You can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon." The exchange quickly went viral, with Trump supporters reappropriating the chant, "Let's go, Brandon," to convey anti-Biden animosity, which I'm really glad because the F-bombs weren't a good look, in my opinion. I didn't like it. I don't like it. So, and now Let's Go Brandon has become a bigger thing, just about how the media will cover up. They're like, don't trust your ears. Just trust what we tell you. You can't trust what you hear, what you see. Just trust what comes out of our mouths, really, is what like Let's Go Brandon really truly means to me. So it's hilarious. You can't fake grassroots support, and there is a real ecosystem of Trump supporters, said Cliff Sims, who was a senior administrative official under Trump, part of the power of online movement for Trump, is they're just having a great time, and they're making fun of people, they're trolling, they're creating funny memes to get a laugh or get retweets. Asked what the administration makes of Trump supporters co-opting the phrase that Biden intended as a prerogative, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that if these Republicans are embracing their opposition to women's rights and make choices about their own health care, if they're embracing a plan that will raise taxes on 75 million Americans, which she's crazy about that, lying, if they're embracing the importance of fighting Mickey Mouse over virtually any other issue, I guess that's their platform. Good for them, Psaki concluded. We're happy to have a debate about that. Biden's attempt to appropriate the MAGA brand as a political attack was hardly accidental. It arose from a 6-month research project to find the best way. 6 months, guys! Oh my gosh. 6-month research project to find the best way to target Republicans, helmed by Biden advisor Anita Dunn and by the Center of American Progress Action Fund, a liberal group. The polling of focus group research by Heart Research and the Global Strategy Group found that MAGA was already viewed negatively by voters, more negatively than the phrase like Trump Republicans. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. In battleground areas, more than twice as many voters said they would be less likely to vote for someone called a MAGA Republican than than would be more likely. The research also found that description tapped into the broad agreement among voters that the Republican Party had become more extreme and power hungry in recent years. What's funny about Democrats saying like the Republicans have been more power hungry or whatever, they've operated in a smarter fashion and not just rolled over and allowed the Democrats to I don't know, shiv them to death. I guess the the killing the filibuster in regard to the judicial nominee or whatever, that was in retaliation to Harry Reid, and they warned them like, "Hey, you're going to regret this one day." So they went ahead and did that because Democrats were playing games. The blocking out of Merrick Garland, that was a pretty gutsy move that frankly, I was surprised that they pulled that off, but I was glad that they risked a lot. You guys realize they risked a lot because they didn't know that Trump was going to win. And so there's possibility that Hillary would get in and pick someone worse than Garland. There was a big possibility of that. That was a big gutsy gamble that they did. And so Democrats are thinking that Republicans are power hungry, and it's funny that they're like, Democrats aren't doing anything. Why won't you stand up to them? Why won't you stand up to them? And it's because the stuff the Democrats want to do, one, it is bad for the country, but two, it is also unpopular. There was someone who's on Bill Maher's show, and they were talking, and Bill was just talking about student loan debt, and like a lot of this debt is from grad students. There's like 63% of people don't even go to college. So why should someone who's blue collar who didn't go to college have to pay for some kid who was in gender studies? It didn't make a lot of sense. And so there's one guy, I think was a Democrat strategist or something, but he was a Democrat. He's like, yeah, we just all get together and joke about and brainstorm on how we can do things that are unpopular. And he just seemed really frustrated. And he said it like in a funny way that was like, haha, let's laugh at this. But there's a lot of really radical progressive folks especially like young folks in their party who really want particular things, but they're not good for the overall all base. So they don't have really popular opinions. Now not if they explain it in the proper way, in a truthful way, in a truthful manner, like Obamacare. That's an example of something that they're like, hey, it's a good thing we didn't explain this, what it really does, because it would have never passed, never would have passed. It's a great thing that Obama went around just lying to folks all the time and won like lie of the year because he lied. Obviously, people couldn't keep their doctor if they liked their doctor, and they couldn't keep their plan if they liked their plan. A lot of people lost that stuff. I understand not everybody did, but a lot of people lost that stuff. So they do really have to lie to people um about all kinds of issues. So um this is hilarious. Now I don't think I think the MAGA thing is fun or whatever. In as much as like, I really like Trump and stuff. I'm just like, I'm me. I don't know how many people are going to keep calling themselves MAGA thing. I was use it kind of more like a fun sort of thing, but I've been conservative. I've been Republican for a long time, and I really haven't changed. So I'm just still just me at the end of the day. But it's funny how it triggers people, and it's funny that Biden thought this was a great idea, and they can't really market it very well. I mean, Jen Psaki like, well, if it means that you're against a woman's right to choose, you can't even like properly explain what abortion is and what it's really about. You have to like use euphemisms and all kinds of other stuff, just like total dishonesty, but that's how they operate. I just thought it was a funny story. And you know what, Democrats, I'll do you solid. Like, I'll make, you don't have to wait 6 months. We can come up with something together. I'm not gonna give you like a winning strategy because I want you to lose, but it's gonna be better than this. So you could at least not be totally embarrassed. Inbox me. It's just hilarious, utterly hilarious. Okay, I want to show you this video of this conversation at this pro choice rally, pro abortion rally that happened in DC. I kind of wish I was there a little bit to talk to these folks as well, but I was at Comic Con. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I had a good weekend. I hope you guys had a good weekend. But I want to show you guys this video because this really is indicative of a lot of folks on this issue.
What's going on? What are you doing here today?
Oh, here we're protesting to keep abortions because they're trying to take away Roe versus Wade to federally protect it.
Are you a student?
I am a student. I live in Seattle, Washington.
Okay, so you came a long way for
Yeah.
this. So why is this so important to you?
Well, I want to keep rights for me and my friends. You know, I know people who have like almost died from getting like unsafe abortions in the past. And so, you know, obviously we want to protect that from happening ever again.
Oh wow, where are your friends getting unsafe abortions?
Not my friends,
Oh,
but like older people before me, family.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you're anti or you're pro-abortion?
Yeah, pro-choice. You know, I think it's up to everyone. I don't think religion should have anything to do with it. Don't get an abortion if you don't want it.
Right. So where would you say, how far along in pregnancy are you okay with abortions?
You know, I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that part too much. I just think if a woman like doesn't feel comfortable having a baby yet and she's not ready or her life situation isn't like wouldn't be able to support it in any way, then she should be able to get an abortion.
So it's pretty loud, the background noise. So I'm gonna explain. So she did come from Seattle, so long way to get to this rally. She says there's a lot of women who've had illegal abortions, and it's good on the interviewer who's like, "Oh, where are your friends getting illegal abortions?" And she's like, "Oh, not my friends." Just like, so this is stuff that she's heard, which there are. There are people who will say that, especially like we'll say like, well, my great great aunt or something. I've heard people say that like in rebuttals and other stuff like that. But so many things have changed since a long time ago. I mean, we've had Roe v. Wade becoming legal, by the way. It like the law of the land isn't what like had a big drop in women dying in these back alley abortions and stuff. It was like the invention of just like more modern medicine that could accommodate women when those sort of emergencies or situations happen. So there's that. People probably wouldn't be doing them if it becomes just illegal. If we just ban abortions, people wouldn't be doing it with a coat hanger so much. They probably be doing them with these pills that the abortion industry claims are so safe that you can do them at home without any sort of doctor supervision and stuff. So if it's not safe, which obviously they're not safe because they kill the baby, but in regards to the mother, if they're not, and it's risking that a woman will die, the abortion industry has a lot of explaining to do. A lot of explaining to do. So she brought up religion. You guys know I'm very religious. I can definitely argue against abortion from a religious standpoint, but I don't do that because, first of all, that'd be arguing with a level of authority that a lot of people don't respect or care about. But it seems like a lot of pro-choice people really care about it. It seems like because they always bring it up and then I have to rebut. My position is very simple. It's a life. Scientifically, absolutely is. And it deserves the right to life. Period. That's it. That's the argument, and I can rebuttal and go back and forth with what they think. But it's very simple, and I didn't quote you one scripture. So she brought up religion, so that's a talking point, and she's talking about they're taking away my rights. You know, I don't know if people know this, but pregnant people still have rights. You know, pregnant people can still live life. Pregnant people can still work. Pregnant people can drive cars. Pregnant people can speak. Pregnant people can carry guns. Pregnant people can do a lot. They still have due process, as a matter of fact. Pregnant people, they're still human beings. They're still able to operate and function in society. And if you do happen to carry your child to term, it will not be a total detriment to the rest of your life. Just FYI, it seems like people don't know that. Seems like people really, really don't know that. And this young girl has not considered how far she's willing to go. How can you not consider it? And she's just kind of like, whatever is best for the woman, not necessarily their health, but whether they decide they can't afford it or whatever. So it's about just women not being in uncomfortable situations, I guess. Willing to wipe out a life because of convenience. And people get so mad when you say vast majority of abortions are out of convenience. And I mean like 95%, if that's not too generous of a number. People get really upset, and I'm not saying it's not a hard decision. I don't think women are psychopaths. We just get them for funsies. So it's not that I don't think it's a hard decision, but it's not a decision that you had to make, is what I mean. Like, you could have toughed it out a little bit. If we had to tough it out for a year or two, or just 9 months until you gave the baby up for adoption and found a nice home or something. But it's just about people feeling that they don't want to be inconvenienced more than the time it takes to have the abortion, you know? So she hasn't even considered how far she's willing to let the abortion go. So let's keep listening.
What if the baby's like basically 9 months and then the mom wants to get an abortion?
I'm not sure. I would think that if that's what she needs, then it should be okay.
Even if the baby's like fully formed and can feel pain and everything?
Yeah, if there is like no possible way for her to care for it, because if it ends up in foster care and unsafe situation, that's just going to be another life that's getting in the harm.
Oh, do you think foster care is unsafe?
I think in a lot of situations, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I was just talking to a girl yesterday who her mom tried to abort her and she accidentally survived somehow. The doctor like scraped her scalp kind of, but she survived. She was telling me that she's really grateful that she survived. What do you think about that?
I mean, if my mom aborted me, I wouldn't know. I would have no feeling. Like, if I wasn't here, then it wouldn't matter.
Right. But you're probably glad you're here, right?
I mean, I guess, but it's not like it would matter if I wasn't, because I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't have an opinion.
Okay.
She said if my mom had aborted me, I wouldn't know. It wouldn't matter because I wouldn't be here. And unfortunately, I hear stuff like all the time. So people were criticizing the journalists who put that up. Or like, you interviewed this young girl just to like shame her and have people talk about her on social media, blah blah blah. I promise you, this is like the average person who gets on TikTok. There's people who are like abortion debates 18 plus, and I'm pretty sure it's to weed out the silliest of arguments from young ladies. But it seems to me on that app, if you're like, there are people who are younger who like, there's a handful of people who make some sense. Yeah. But if sometimes when I'm like having an argument with someone and it's just really nonsensical, I'm like, this person is somewhere between the ages of 15 to 23. That is the zone. But you know what? When it comes to like the abortion argument, there's a lot of adults who are super silly in their arguments. And I think a lot of it just comes from a desperation to preserve this, because there's women who have had it, or someone who knows it, who had it, who's close, and they feel such a visceral need to protect abortion to justify what they've done. It's like a defense mechanism. And that's what other people who have said, who have had abortions, who have come to regret that they've had them, and they realize that they would lash out, even say things, incendiary things to pro-life people to make them upset. Like, I'm glad I had an abortion. Like I had like 20, or I'm glad to kill my baby, or we eat fetuses, just like crazy stuff like that. People are like, that's straight up demonic. A lot of it is coming from a place of pain for a lot of people. So I think about that, Jesus on the being like, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So that is what you have to consider with a lot of these folks. But um, a lot of what she said is just jargon. It doesn't mean anything. My body, my choice doesn't mean anything. And a lot of these people aren't even consistent because a lot of these folks are for lockdowns and mandates and all that other kind of stuff. There's no like, unless you're like a super libertarian sort of person, which it seems like a lot of those folks don't even want to bother arguing about this too much, are too passionate about it. To me, I don't take you really seriously about the bodily autonomy argument because I don't find a lot of consistency there with folks in the least bit. But this idea of like, well, if I had just been aborted, whatever, who cares? You know, and I talked about this the other day. I did a TikTok just warning people like, please stop saying things like, I wish I had been aborted. And it's so sad to me when people say things like that. And I'm like, in all seriousness, if this is how you legitimately feel, get off social media. Don't be on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, especially not Tumblr. And go seek some professional help. In all seriousness. And you don't need to be on these toxic apps with your toxic thoughts about yourself. You need to get some help and I don't know, try to find some meaning in life, whether that's you can do that with a therapist, friends, family, church, find religion. Please find religion, but just do something. But get off the app if you really feel that way. It's very self-destructive. But hopefully, when most people say things like that, they don't realize what they're saying. Because if you're saying that you wish that you had rather been aborted, not even like not existed, at least if you said not existed, that's one thing. Still awful. Like go watch It's a Wonderful Life, please, or something, to learn those life lessons. But to say you wish you'd rather have been aborted, that your mother had brutally killed you, and people get mad when I say brutal, and they're like, most people have them early. You don't think suffocating your baby, depriving them of nutrients until they like shrivel up and like die, and then you have to have these contractions to force them out, and maybe they'll come out in pieces. You don't think it's brutal? You can say maybe they don't feel it, maybe. But if a serial killer numbed you up, and then like dismembered you, I still think that would be brutal, whether you could feel it or not. So I think brutal is accurate. Okay. If you're starving, suffocating your child. So you're wishing that someone had violently killed you, regardless of what kind of mental harm that could do to your mother if she had done that. And why? Think about that. If you think if you would have rather been aborted or not existed, that means the sum total of your life is kind of huge negative. That all the experiences you've had, the relationships you formed, bonds that you formed with people, whether it was a relationship with someone of the same sex, opposite sex, whether it was friendships, whether it was with your mom or your dad or siblings, teachers, TV shows that you whatever like made up your life that you may have enjoyed, like it's all compared to each other, all like crumbled up into a big ball of negative. And then you and everyone around you would be better off if you weren't here. Is that what you really mean? Is that what you really mean? And again, if it is, then please get off social media and go seek some professional help. And I sincerely mean that. When I hear people say that, I might go back and forth with them a little bit, but I don't really want to keep engaging with folks because I just they're in an obviously bad place, and I don't want to put them on blast like that. Like there was one person who said something like that the other day. They told me that their daughter, she was deformed, and she tells her every day that she wishes her mother had aborted her. What kind of mother would put that on social media? What, for clout? To prove a point? Regardless of how you, and then she was like, you pro-lifers, you just think that life is supposed to be good for everyone and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, actually, that's not what we believe. And you know what? That's not just as a pro-life person, but as someone who reads the Bible, who believes in Jesus Christ and all the other guys. That's not what we believe. It's like Jesus tells you that there's gonna be suffering. He gave like an exit plan for his disciples. Like, this is what you do when they run you out of town, and you just kind of pick up and you go to another one and keep on preaching the gospel. He was he was crucified. The disciples who believed he was risen and all that kind of stuff, died and resurrected, preached the gospel, brutally killed. Like, read the book of Job. Like, we believe in suffering, but we believe there's still value in life regardless of it. And there's like scriptures that tell you to still count it all joy, regardless. And all things like give thanks. I had a friend who died of cancer during 20 was it 2020, I guess it was 2021 because it's during lockdown. No, it had to be 2020. It had to be 2020. And it was awful and it was rough. And the day that it happened was my nephew's birthday. And on the way to his party, I put it on, Facebook, and Jesse Duplantis is on. Don't care if you don't like him. And he was preaching about how you still have to count it all joy, and in everything give thanks. And it was what I needed to hear because it was hard. It was so hard. But even knowing that someone you love was gone, and then going to celebrate someone who was still here who you love, I don't know, equate it to the Lion King circle of life. I don't know. That you still have to move forward with your life and try to find purpose and meaning and joy where you can, because it's so fleeting. So this young lady talking about, if I wasn't here, if I had been aborted, I don't know. Like, but you are here. And think about the relationships that you have, the people who care for you, your parents, your friends, your family, your aspirations, your dreams, the impact that you would like to have on the planet. Like, I guess you're right. If you weren't here, then you wouldn't be here. But it's I don't know, it's so sick, and and it's sad, and I keep saying that we don't care. When people keep saying like Black lives matter, all lives matter, your life has to matter. And if you don't believe that your life matters, like, what does it matter? Someone else's life matter. You're going to see all these killing in the streets. You're going to see all this killing in the womb because women, like, our rate of abortion in the United States is so radically high. Not compared to like developed nations, just period in the world. It's not because we don't have education. It's not because we don't have access to birth control. Condoms are cheap. Abstinence is free, and there's still a lot of other different options. A lot of women who have, like, 86% of abortions are done for, no, 86 is from unwed women, but I think it's higher than that I did the math, but it's like 80 something is from women who are like from their 20s to 40s. So you can't say that we have a lack of education problem. You just can't, not in the United States. It's just simply because we've devalued human life. And a lot of women feel like they need it. Like, that's a question I think we should start asking people when we're having these debates, is like, why do you feel like you need this so much? Why do you feel, because there's going to be women who have like really dire bad circumstances that we're going to need to help find solutions for. But some of it is just going to be like, I feel like I couldn't finish grad school without it, or do my job or whatever without it. And we can help to find solutions for that. But to me, it just seems like we're in this age of female as future empowerment and the MCU universe, and yes, queen, girl boss, all that other kind of stuff. But people have such lack of faith in themselves, it seems. I think a lot of it is fueled by selfishness, certainly, but it just seems like just really a lack of care about what could happen to them in the long run, if they do this, they don't realize that they have it within themselves to care for this person, to make room for them, to be brave enough to do that. So it's sad. It's really sad. So I just wanted to share that because that is really, really where a lot of the pro-choice movement is right now. So let's move on. Someone's late to the show asking about the MAGA King. You're late, bruh. We already talked about the MAGA King. Yes, we were talking about Trump. I want to play this clip from the new press secretary. They're all bragging about her being like the first Black immigrant gay person in this position, but what does it matter when people are just like not great at their jobs? And this wasn't even a hard question.
Just one on the trip tomorrow. How come the president is visiting Buffalo after a senseless tragedy there, but he couldn't visit Waukesha after 6 were killed and 61 injured in an attack on a Christmas parade there?
I mean, he's visited many communities. Buffalo, he's able to go tomorrow to Buffalo before the trip. That is something that was important for him to do. But he has visited many other communities. Buffalo's not the first community, sadly, that he has to go up to because of a violent attack. So, that's not the first one. So he's been to many others.
So, people were really complaining about Biden. That's actually not the clip that I wanted to show you guys, so I apologize for that. I'm trying to get it really quick. People were upset or complaining about how Biden didn't go to Waukesha after the parade mass killing, but they were like a radical sort of Black nationalist kind of weird leftist weirdo, I suppose. And so was a person recently, was it last month? There was a guy in the New York subway who was like a pro-Black national sort of thing that disappeared from the news, and that was like a big thing for like a day or two, and then it was gone. And now people are really concentrating on this new thing, like, oh well, he went to one, but he didn't go to this. Yeah, that's what people are noting. And people are very curious about why that is, why there's a picking and a choosing of when they decide to go. Now, they kind of seem like it would kind of cause too much disruption. But it probably would have been nice for the president of the United States to visit them at that time where there was a massacre at a Christmas parade. So not a great answer. But here is the one I wanted to show you guys.
The president's Twitter account posted the other day, "You want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share." Mm-hmm. How does raising taxes on corporations reduce inflation?
So are you talking about a specific tweet?
He tweeted, "You want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share."
Look, we have talked about this past year about making sure that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share. And that is important to do, and that is something that the president has been working on every day when we talk about inflation and lowering costs. And so it's very important that as we're seeing costs rise, as we're talking about how to build a America that's safe, that's equal for everyone and doesn't leave everyone behind. That is an important part of that as well.
But how does raising taxes on corporations lower the cost of gas, the cost of a used car, the cost of food for everyday Americans?
So look, I think we encourage those who have done very well, right? Especially those who care about climate change, to support a fair tax code that doesn't charge manufacturers, workers, cops, builders a higher percentage of their earnings, that the most fortunate people in our nation, and not let that stand in the way of reducing energy costs and fighting this existential problem, if you think about that as an example. And to support basic collective bargaining rights as well, right? That's also important. But look, it is, by not, without having a fair tax code, which is what I'm talking about, then like manufacturing workers, cops, it's not fair for them to have to pay higher taxes than the folks who are not paying taxes.
Okay, so how are you going to read talking points about a subject that has nothing to do with anything? The man wanted to know, how does taxing people more and taxing the rich and wanting them to pay their fair share and stuff, how is that going to cut inflation? Ducey repeated the question, and she started reading from her list of, well, people need to pay their fair share because what does that even mean? What does that even mean? It means that you have money I don't want you to pay for my crap. That's what it means. So what's this what it means? Because people paying 50% of their income and stuff, is that fair? Is that fair? When you dream of getting off the streets and being able to buy your mama a house because you become an NFL player or something like that, and you worked really hard to get where you got, or you put yourself through trade schools or something, and you were savvy enough to do that, but you couldn't go to college or whatever, but you developed some skills, and you're able to move your family to a nice neighborhood or whatever, and maybe you're making a little bit more than 400,000 because you married up for some reason. Your wife is hot and banging and got a good job and stuff too, and is what's the fair share for all these folks? Because Bernie Sanders used to talk a lot about millionaires and billionaires until he wrote a best-selling novel and started cashing in them checks and buying 3 houses. Then it changed to the billionaires because he was a millionaire. Patrisse Cullors, founder of Black Lives Matter, one of the co-founders, she's a Marxist with some mansions. And people are like, where's this money going for BLM? Yeah, it's going to her lavish lifestyle and money that she's laundered through friends, but not well enough, not far enough removed, because people can trace the money back to her and her baby's daddies and all this other kind of stuff. So these people don't have principles about where they actually stand on stuff. But how is taxing more people going to lead to lower inflation? You need to stop spending so much money. But they want to spend more money and they want to tax people. They want to spend more money and tax more people. They're talking about putting more money in more COVID relief kind of stuff. There was money. The last thing that they spent, the Build Back Better plan, they had COVID money that they didn't spend. And then the Republicans didn't want to vote for it because they're like, this isn't a COVID relief bill. And they're like, how dare you Republicans not care about people and blah, 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 etc. And then eventually, they're like, oh yeah, it wasn't a COVID relief bill, because Jen Psaki tried to spin it like they were defunding the police, because hypothetically someone could use the money in the Build Back Better plan to put it toward police. And she's like, well, it was a great bill. I'm like, Jen, just dirty liars. They're also just dirty liars. But this wasn't even a good lie. It wasn't even a good circle. She's just falling off a cliff. So at least Jen would circle back to you. Well, she wouldn't really circle back to you, but she claimed she would circle back. So they're happy because she's like, oh, I'm gay and I'm black and I'm an immigrant and all this other kind of stuff. But are you going to be good at your job? Now, I understand her job is to lie for the president of the United States and to spin certain things and to give off their misinformation, etc. That's what her job is. That was not a good example of her being good at her job. There wasn't even a good cloak of deception in it. It was just, I don't have a good thing to say, so I'm gonna read what is on this paper here. They can't beat McEnany that her binder, man. She was ready to go. It's so bad. And it's not something that they should need talking points to explain to Peter Ducey about it. This is something that they absolutely believe in, that it's moral to just tax more people. And you know what? It's not too long ago. It's a year ago, a little over a year ago, that Jen Psaki said this. By the way, you take her off.
I will say, as we've said in here before, but we'll reiterate that, of course, we take the possibility of inflation quite seriously. As actions that have been taken to date or proposals that have been made, most economic analysts believe that it will have a temporary or transitory impact.
Ooh, it might happen. Ooh, if it does happen, it'll just be temporary, transitory. And obviously that wasn't true. Obviously that was not true. They were wrong on that. Now they have someone else there to push their lies. They're just not good at this. They're just not good at this. I feel like and Jen Psaki, she's gone now, good riddance. She's gone to MSNBC again. It was unethical that they allowed her to be still at the White House for such a long time, knowing that she had this big contract. People were all like, trying to get her, like, there was some bidding going on or whatever, but I don't understand how people are bidding for you and yet you land at MSNBC. How does that happen? Was there actually a bid, Jen? That just seems weird to me. Weird to me, because out of all the unserious places you could go, that is the most unserious. That is the most unserious. But whatever. She's gone. She's gone now, and now there's a new clown. And driving the clown bus. And but at least she's black and gay, guys. At least she's black and gay, because she's not good at her job. Last thing I want to mention today before we get going is the Pennsylvania race is going to conclude today. And it'll be an interesting night. And of course, Kathy Barnett is surging in the polls. Dr. Oz is the endorsed Trump candidate, which raised a lot of brows. Kathy was pretty distant, but she just like shot up. Especially after the debate that they had, and she put McCormick and definitely Oz on blast on different things that they've said and done or whatever. And people liked her fire, and people, some conservatives on Twitter who were really big, like Jack Posobiec and Mike Cernovich, other people just started talking about Kathy, and she really, really blew up. I've talked about how I don't like some of the attacks, I guess really any of the attacks that people have lodged against her, because some of them are just so unethical, in my opinion. Pastor Darrell Scott pointed out, like, she had some different tweets that people are upset about or drawing attention to. And the Pastor Scott pointed out, like, Obama was like, hey, if you got to like debate or whatever in the primaries, it's one thing, but don't hammer out people too much, because you're going to mess up stuff in the general. He's like, we need to like remember that. And that was also Reagan's thing, like the 11th commandment or something, like don't attack your fellow Republican or something like that. And so people are like, we got to talk about this stuff because leftists are going to hammer her. And he's like, well, then let the leftists do it. Like but to paint her as some kind of Trump hating BLM secret Democrat kind of person is beyond the pale. And I agree. There was a super chopped up video that came out, super chopped up, and trying to make her seem like she's pro BLM, spouting like racial sort of politics. And I thought it was really messed up. I would never make a video that if someone went back to the original context, that it would make me just look like a liar and reveal me to be a liar. I would not do that. One, it's unethical. One, it's and two, it's stupid. It's just stupid. And you had Rick Grinnell passing it around. You had people mass tweeting. Matt Walsh and Ali Stuckley were like, this, like, what's the context here? This is super edited. And then he started going back and forth, like attacking them, just to prop up Oz. And it was really bizarre. So they're putting like everything on this. Sean Hannity is like phoning it in, man. He did a hit piece on Kathy the other night. And like, look, here's a video of her marching peacefully during January 6th. There's some Proud Boys in front of her. Like, but that doesn't mean she's marching with them. There's thousands of people there. Are you going to trash Trump for actually having the rally and asking people to march peacefully? or you just want to attack Kathy. Like it's really bizarre. But they're like in a tie right now. She might bang it out. It seems like someone who has such an amazing life story, at a time where abortion is like on the forefront of conversations. Her mother was raped at 11 and conceived Kathy, and she had her at 12. And she's like, it wasn't a choice, it was a life. And Kathy, grew up humble beginnings. She said, clawed her way out of poverty, joined the military, has her own family. Beautiful life story. People have watched the testimony and just like cried and said, Ann Coulter said, if I don't know anything else about this person, I want her to win just because of that. And a good backstory isn't the only reason why someone should win a race, but it is an incredible backstory. And to have her be the candidate and spotlighted to the national stage, having this amazing story, 'cause she is the go-to argument for leftists to say why we need abortion, even though that is I would assume most people in that kind of situation probably keep their baby, because it's like rape accounts for less than 1%. I don't even know if it's like 5.5%. Like it's it's really, really low. People use it all the time. Like, what if an 11-year-old, this 11-year-old kept her baby and became Kathy Barnett, who's probably potentially could be the first Black female Republican senator. So it would be kind of amazing. Now, she may not win. She may not win. There's been a lot of attacks and eyes on her in the past couple days. She may not pull it out. There's a lot of undecideds in the race. And they're the ones that those last minute people deciding are the ones who are going to decide this election. It was pretty much a tie between her and Oz, but maybe there's enough undecideds who would actually go for McCormick, because they're like, you know what, I don't like either of these people. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But people are saying that she's not electable, and I wanna challenge that a little bit. And I want to challenge that because there was a particular attack that Oz lodged against her while she was on Hannity show. No, he was on Hannity show, and they were talking about Hannity had Oz on to talk about Burnett. Excuse me. And so Oz brought up the fact that Burnett had a change.org or whatever petition where she suggested building a statue of Obama. And so Oz threw that out there in the interview, and John's like, what? He's like, I don't know any conservatives that are MAGA conservatives that like Obama or want to build a statue of Obama. And I really don't like Obama. And I've heard people say on the right, like, well, I didn't like his policies, but he was okay. I'm like, no, I didn't like either. I didn't like him. I didn't like his policies. I didn't like him. But here's the context to the actual idea. So the emancipation statue, people were very into burning statues or tearing them down or whatever in 2020. So there's the Lincoln statue that had become a controversy because there's like a slave, and to some people it looks like he's crouching. Some people, they believe it's rising. He's rising. And so there's people who don't like, I don't know, the submissive sort of look to it. So this was her suggestion. Her suggestion was, why don't we not tear this down, add 2 more statues, and one would be of Obama, because like it or not, and I don't particularly like it because I didn't vote for him. He is the first Black president. I mean, he's mixed, but first Black president. And so she said, and also Frederick Douglass. So her idea was that you'd have Frederick Douglass, the famous abolitionist, on my shirt, by the way, be better, not better, right? That he'd be looking toward Lincoln and the emancipated slaves, because that's what he was working toward and was able to accomplish, and then looking off toward Obama, because she pointed out that history is messy, but history is still history. It's still our history. Can't just tear that down. You can't erase it. Can't pretend like it didn't happen. And even though we've had these great historical landmarks of, yeah, we got rid of slavery, but then you still had Jim Crow laws and you had to do civil rights and all this other kind of stuff. But we're not the same country that we were in the 1800s or the early 1900s or the mid 1900s or 60s or whatever that we are today, that we've had all of this progress. So her thinking was that these three statues could demonstrate the progress that we've made as a nation. And so her entire idea of it wasn't to uplift Obama. I don't know how she personally feels about Obama, but there's plenty of evidence that this woman is a conservative, right? She's not an undercover Democrat, and people who allege that, um, I just figure they got to be dishonest at this point, because there's plenty of stuff from her past videos and tweets or whatever that show a long sort of progression of these ideas. So maybe she, respects that Obama did what he was able to accomplish or whatever, the historical thing. Maybe she dislikes him and shares a similar view of, like, I didn't like his policies and I like him personally. I don't know. I don't know how she personally feels about Obama. But it was just to highlight the progression that we've made as a nation. It's not a terrible idea. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm saying it's not a terrible idea. And it's definitely not I'm pro Obama, so put him on let's make a statue. Someone's gonna do it anyway. Just FYI, it was a big deal when he got elected. A lot of people thought that racism was gonna end, but you guys were gypped. You guys were gypped. So the reason why I brought up this attack and talked about her reasoning behind it, because I did read like her whole petition and she explained it. She explained her idea behind it, is that you had all these people and there's a lot of emotion surrounding BLM. And I was very aggressive with people because a lot of people believed a lot of lies and people were acting crazy. And 2020 was a very annoying time for me. But she recognized the other side of the aisle and the issues and the complaints and some of these emotions, though they may be from not informed place in a lot of regard, but that doesn't mean that they're insincere feelings. And so she acknowledged them and she found a constructive sort of solution for those feelings to address them and still keep what we have, but still build something up and still express optimism. So that sort of thinking, and again, you don't have to agree with what she did, what she suggested. You don't have to agree with that. I'm not trying to pitch her idea. I'm just trying to explain to you her sort of thinking that I think explains why I believe she is electable, maybe more so than the other two candidates, because she still wants to convey conservative ideas, but she wants to address issues and problems that other people have and wants to address them in a constructive way forward. And so I think the sort of idea that she had here, she can apply that to other sort of things when she has conversations one-on-one with people, not just saying, hey, libtard. I don't think Oz or McCormick, they wouldn't do something like that, okay? But to engage with people and having constructive dialogues with people and try to come up with solutions and still convey like conservatism and not compromise on it when we shouldn't compromise on it. There's been some big strategists or whatever. They're like, hey, we need to have someone kind of more middle of the road, some people that people deem sort of more moderate to get these other voters. But we believe in our values because they're correct, right? There's no point in being. I'm like, people are like, why are you Republican? Because I agree with these principles that are in our platform. I'm not always happy with my party, but these are my particular values. So I can not identify as Republican. I'm still going to vote Republican and be Republican regardless. Okay. And I'm definitely still going to be conservative at the end of the day, but we believe these things because we believe that these policies and ideas are correct. No, there's no point in believing if you don't think it's correct, right? So why compromise? Why have someone who's going to compromise on those things? We need someone who's going to express those values and reach out and have good dialogue and conversations with people. So I believe that Kathy, she's been on the ground talking to folks, and if she hits particular sort of areas and makes her case in a way that's like, I hear where you're coming from. This is where I'm coming from. Let me explain my side, and let's come to a constructive solution or something. If that's the sort of candidate that she will be for the rest of the race in these particular Democrat areas, she's not going to be able to win in certain areas, sure, but she just needs to get enough votes in the statewide election in some of these areas to turn it out. So I don't think that Oz is more electable than her. He has very high unfavorables. There's some Republicans who'll probably take their ball and go home because they still, regardless of what he ever says now, people still have the Breakfast Club video. People still remember that he had about the trans kids episodes and all that other kind of stuff. It's just not going anywhere. And and I think McCormick. Why don't people vote for him rather than Oz? I think he'd probably be more electable, but I do think Kathy can make a difference, and I think her story is also compelling, her personal story, and I think that can change a lot of hearts and minds, especially like that young girl that I showed earlier, who's just like, well, if I was aborted, I wouldn't be here. Like those people haven't really thought out their positions very well. So you have someone who has this very personal experience, who understands the issues, who's very well versed in them, who's not afraid to have the conversation. Too many Republicans are too afraid to have these conversations, and Kathy is not. So I don't think that she's not electable. And if she wins tonight, if you're from Pennsylvania, do not be too afraid. And if you want to vote for her, don't be too afraid to vote for her. Don't be too afraid to vote for her. Too many people say this person isn't electable because they want their guy to win. And sometimes those people aren't electable, just to be honest. Sometimes that's true, but a lot of times people will say that because they have a dog in the race. So good luck to Kathy. Good. I wish her all the best. I am still puzzled on like Sean, just sort of like the sort of attacks that they're doing is amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. In a bad way. And it's sad and disappointing. If you want to attack old tweets and other stuff like that, that's fine, but don't try to like make up positions that the woman doesn't actually have. And because you have to make up positions that she doesn't actually have, it makes me think that she's pretty legit. So I hope it backfires for justice sake. So that's the show for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just really quickly, I was at Motor City Comic Con this past weekend. That's why I didn't have a show. I meant to do a show Thursday and film some for Friday, but I was just kind of too busy preparing. So Friday was a show, Saturday was a show, and Sunday was a show. So I was there all weekend. I took some pictures at my banner, but I didn't post them. But for those of you who don't know, I write. These are all my books. So that are published. So I have 15 published books. By the way, I had to retake this photo like 3-4 times because after I take the photo, I'd realized there was one missing. So I had to retake it a couple times. It's a nice problem to have. So I write the top book is Slay Your Fear. That's my only nonfiction book. That's a faith book, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. The next two are my children's middle grade chapter books, Super Kid. I have it on good authority that the kids have said that they're very epic. And the rest are like paranormal romance, contemporary fantasy. I got historical fiction with The Color of God's Eyes and Song of the Devil's Lips. Those two books sold out at Motor City Comic Con. So I had a nice weekend. A lot of people really respond well to my stuff. People always respond well to The Color of God's Eyes and Song of the Devil's Lips. Those are like probably my favorites though. So I do pitch those pretty hard to folks. And the covers really, really catching. People respond well to my new book, Anubis. People really like The Dark Mermaid, the cover and stuff for that. The Empress people were really interested in that. That's another book that I'm really proud of. Someone asked like what book I was most proud of. Probably The Song on the Devil's Lips. This historical fiction stuff took a lot of research and was a really big labor of love. And but the Empress was like a big labor of love too. Lots of action and other stuff like that. And they're really good in my opinion, my humble opinion from the unbiased author here. Yeah. So anyway, if you go to blackteennews.com and hit the merchandise banner, or if you go to merchandise, there's a banner at the top with my books on it. That'll take you to my book website. So you can find everything at blackteennews.com. But my book website is ninjadustpublishing.com. Ninjadustpublishing.com. So I had a fun weekend. My sister was right next to me. She makes text portraits. I did post up some pictures of her work on my Facebook. If you haven't seen it, you should really check it out. She's very, very talented, and get a really cool gift for yourself and your friends and your family. So yeah, I had a good weekend. The only reason why I didn't do a show yesterday is because my sister called me and she needed someone to take her baby to the doctors, and she never really asked for stuff, so I don't like to tell her no. So I was like, yeah, sure, I can do it. And I gave myself another day, and I just really stayed home and wrote a lot. And then so I'm always really excited after a convention, because you get people talking about your books, and like someone had read my mermaid book, like, when's the next one coming out? And so I was like, oh my gosh, let me work on it and stuff. So let me write, in which it is going to be out like this year. But yeah, so it fuels me, it gets me excited. So yeah, I wanted to write yesterday, so I was a little selfish yesterday, and then not selfish with my sister and her kids, who conveniently had to pee. And the first place was an ice cream shop out in Sterling Heights. I think it was a Lebanese place. They really liked the music. Though we did not understand it, but they thought it was pretty, and the girls danced around a bit. Covered in chocolate. Sophia had strawberry though. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to the website, check out different merchandise that I have as well, different shirts and whatnot. Like the one I'm wearing, the Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Get some cool stuff, especially, we got 4th of July coming up, and so make sure that you're getting some cool merch that's gonna push back against these weirdos who want to cancel the holiday. So make Juneteenth the new thing. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.